Talk a little like, how the heck did you get into this business? Because I know years ago, I mean, I think I saw Intel on your resume. Like, you were not doing this. You were doing something very different. And my guess is you probably didn't ever intend to get into this or be trying to generate 100 millionaires. At that point, you probably, I don't even know if you knew a millionaire, right? Like, so if that's cool, I want to talk a little bit about like your background growing up. Like, how the heck did you find yourself, not just in real estate, but such a, for lack of a better word, an all-star in real estate that now you find that you can take all the time? Because I have no doubt, I looked at the production value of this. It's a lot of your time. You're not doing this as like a side thing. This is not like a little hobby where you record a podcast on the side. You're dedicating some serious time to this thing to really help others. It isn't even about helping yourself at this point. You want to help others kind of elevate themselves. That requires you to be in a good enough position that you can dedicate that kind of time to helping other people because you have your own stuff kind of down pat. How did that happen? How did you get where you are?
Well, I think the allegations of a silver spoon, that argument, I think, can be made rather successfully because by the time I got to where I was in actually a pretty good spot in my life. Now,
tell me about it.
I was in a pretty good spot in my life because my parents came here as broke immigrants and worked their butts off to get in a position where they could put 6 boys through college. Right? I'm the oldest of 6 sons.
Whoa. So, tell me about that. Tell me about your parents coming over here. You had 5 other siblings besides you?
Yeah, I have 5 younger brothers, right? So I'm the only one that wasn't born here. So the other 5 were born here, but I came here. I mean, I was born in a refugee camp in Italy. So
really?
We came in here. Yeah, so we came here with really nothing. But you can make the argument that by the time I got on my own 2 feet, I had a pretty good situation because my parents were already upper middle class. They were making good money, right? So like, you can make that argument, but I got to see the work ethic. I got to see like, the working crazy hours. My mom and dad both working 70, 80 hours a week, growing up with basically absentee parents, not because they're bad people, but because like, they have one responsibility, and it's to get their kids to get good grades, get a good job, go to college, get a good job, and all other stuff. So, yes, you can make the argument I had a silver spoon, and I had a pretty good life. By the time I got into the workforce, like I went to ASU, I got a full ride to Arizona State University, I got a full ride to UC San Diego, I got a master's degree, I work at Intel. I'm making
those full rides. So I do want to be clear though. Those full ride scholarships, what were those based off of? Like you didn't, it wasn't based off your name or personality. Yeah, exactly. No, so okay, so you worked your ass off in school to get the good enough grades to be able to. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Great.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So, but it wasn't even a choice, right? It wasn't like, hey, I hope you do well in school and blah blah blah. It's like we're working like crazy hours so that you guys can do well in school, so that you can have a full ride and so on. So like that was the expectation, and so I had those. And so by the time, I graduated college, I had $8,000 in student loans because, it's like, well, $8,000 no interest. Okay, yeah, I'll take that. Sure. Right.
Smart.
And so, things are pretty good until I quit my job. And then once I quit my job, holy crap, like real estate's hard. So I quit engineering. Like I said, when I quit, I was making $85,000 plus benefits. And this is back in 2007.
Yeah.
Which $85,000 back then went a lot further than it goes today.
It does, yeah.
So, I mean, it got good health benefits, 401k, matching, all that good stuff. But when I went to go work myself, real estate, entrepreneurship was really hard. And I had no idea how hard. Because, like...
What made you do that? Because I think a lot of people find themselves, if they're listening to a podcast like this, and they're not already kind of chasing their passion, they're probably stuck in the same position you were. They're treading water, and things feel safe. Like, sure, inflation is out of control. Sure, the money they make last year is going to be worth even less next year. And so they don't see it like going up and to the right, but it's like stable enough. How did you go about taking that leap to be like, I'm going to just like hands off the wheel. I'm going to grab a different steering wheel and hope that I can drive the car with this thing, knowing without any background. I'm guessing your parents were in real estate. You probably did you know people in real estate that were your mentors at that point? I mean,
I had basically everyone in my world telling me you're absolutely insane taking this risk. Everyone.
Yeah, your parents probably first among them, right? I mean, your parents.
My parents did not want me to do it. They're like, "Why did you do this? Like, you went to grad school.
Totally.
Like, you have a good job. Like, why would you do this?" Right. So my parents, like, out of love, right? But they're like, "You're stupid.
Of course.
Right? You're insane." Everyone around me, except for 2 people.
Okay.
My best friend, right, who I've known since 7th grade, who has since sold his company for almost $100 million. So like,
wow.
So he's done well. But he was my, he was my best friend, still my best friend. He was the only one who was like, hey, like, go for it. Because if it doesn't work out, just quit and just go back and get your regular job. Like everyone else is like, if you go out and fail, like it's like doom.
Game over.
He was the one that was like, yeah, if it doesn't work out, just go get your job back. Like, that makes total sense. And the other person was my girlfriend at the time, who was my wife today. And she was
really?
like, yeah. She was like, hey, like, like go for it. And if it doesn't work out, like, we'll figure something out. Right?
Yeah.
So 2 people were like, hey, if it doesn't work out, like, it's not the end of the world. Whereas everyone else was like, it's game over. Like, your life is over.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think that's a lot of people's idea. Like, okay, if I fail at this thing after having spent X number of years on it, that's it. Like, I'm out of the game. I could have been making progress. I could have been a manager or a leader in whatever organization I'm in by then. What gave you yourself the personal confidence to listen to these 2 people compared to literally everybody else in your life that's telling you not to do this crazy thing?
So one of the gifts I have is an absolute blessing. Gets me in trouble, but it's an absolute blessing. Is this irrational confidence? It's that I will figure it out. No matter what happens, I will figure it out. Yep. And it's what got me through. Like, I mean, in grad school, there was a moment where there was a conversation like, hey, Steve, we're going to have to take back this scholarship because your grades are terrible, right? Because, because my first quarter at UC San Diego, I was treating it like I was back at ASU where, like, the competition is not so great.
Right.
At UC San Diego, I have to compete against the smartest, right? Because in order to get to the United States, you got to be the best from India, Taiwan, Korea, all the other stuff. So, like, I'm still treating as if I'm competing against, people at ASU, which I love my, Sun Devils.
It's a party school. Let's be real here.
It's not this prestigious institution. No. So I went from competing against, party school guys to the smartest in the world. So I was not there. And so, like, I had to figure it out and I had to double down, right? That's when I started drinking coffee. It's when I started drinking all this Red Bull. But, I had to figure it out. And I did. I was able to get my grades back up and eventually, do really well. So
fantastic.
I think there's that element of, like, I will always figure it out because I have always figured it out and I have this mindset that I'll always figure it out. And I think that definitely helped.
Do you think part of that was like your parents' experience? Like, they came here with nothing and they just figured it out with 6 boys that they're trying to raise at the same time. Was that part of what contributed to that? Like, just your ability to be self-reliant and figure things out on your own? Or
I think there's this thing that happens, I think there's a couple different things. I think, having awesome parents, like, I'm incredibly blessed. I cannot overstate that. Incredibly blessed. Like, having parents that love you and support you and tell you, like, hey, like, you'll be great, expecting greatness from you. I think that does wonderful things for you. I think the other thing too is having absentee parents is, like, you have to figure it out. Like, you get home from school and you just open the fridge. It's like, what can I eat today? Right? Like, there's nothing in the fridge. You go to the pantry. Like, there's no, like, hey, mom, dad, I'm hungry. Like, they're not home. So, like, you have to figure out what you're going to eat. You have to go do your own homework. You're not asking for any help on your homework.
Yeah.
You just figured it out. So I think that's part of, growing up poor, growing up as an immigrant, growing up as the oldest child in a household where you're also responsible for all your younger siblings. I think for a lot of us, an advantage, not to, discount people that are not the oldest, but the oldest child bears the brunt of responsibility from parents who don't know what they're doing because, they're young when they have you.
First time.
Yeah. First time.
How would you otherwise?
Exactly.
First time. And, and it's interesting. I think for a lot of people who grow up like poor and maybe they don't have like parents who are hovering over them, helping with everything, they see that as a big disadvantage. Look at these other people next to me whose parents were always there for them, always doing things for them, helping with their homework, but hiring tutors, all this kind of stuff. But what's fascinating is then you go forward a decade or 2 decades and you're faced with a life decision. Do I keep on this kind of track that has me at maybe middle management some year and never really retiring with wealth? Or do I take a chance on something that might build some generational wealth for myself and my family? You're ill-equipped. If you're the kind of person who had hover parents everywhere and they were doing your homework for you and they were getting you tutors and that autonomy that you learned early on that made you able to start in real estate and succeed, they don't have that, and you do. Actually, you kids that didn't have the great upbringing, that had more autonomy and less hover parents, you actually have an advantage, a critical advantage if someone wants to follow in your shoes and try and carve their own place in the world out,
Absolutely.
So tell me, what were some of the things you struggled with in terms of getting into real estate and succeeding? Because I imagine those are going to be the same things people who just start tuning into this or watching your podcast series, like that they start thinking to themselves, man, how do I overcome this challenge or this challenge? They're trying to leave a job where they are safe and secure but aren't growing personally in terms of development. Now they're going to be forced to develop in some ways that might be uncomfortable. What are some of the things you struggled with?
So there are a lot of things as you learn along the way. But early on, I would say the biggest struggles. First one is I wish someone would have told me to go get all the loans you want to get before you quit your job. I wish someone would have told me that because you're bankable when you have a W-2 and you're unbankable when you go from a W-2 to 1099.
Let's dive into that dive into that, because I think that's a very specific piece of advice that actually could be really useful that I haven't heard anywhere either. So let's double click on that a little bit.
Yeah. So like when you go to Chase or Bank of America to get a loan, they're like, you have nothing to substantiate the fact that you're going to pay this loan back. I was like, what about my credit score? It's like, we don't know you're going to succeed in a 1099 world or not. We don't know. We know you'll succeed as a W-2. We have the data to support it.
Yep.
But to go from W-2 to 1099, we don't know how well you're going to do. And the data does not support you or anybody else, right?
Right.
80 to 90% of businesses fail either the first year or the second year. So like, you're probably not going to pay this loan back. So why would we give you the money? Right? So you need a track record. Yeah. Like I quit. And I was like, hey, maybe it'd be a good time to get some lines of credit. And they all said, no, forget about
way.
it. We're not giving you any money. Yeah,
No
so
way.
I wish someone would have told me that before I quit my W-2 job.
Yeah. So how did you cobble together finances to get this thing started if you couldn't go to the banks?
So, I mean, I had good credit cards because I did have good credit before, right? So I had like, I want to say maybe like 30,000 available. And I was the guy, right? Back when I was, W-2, Intel, paid off every credit card in full every month, right? No interest.
Every month.
That's the way I was raised, and that's what we did.
100%.
But when you don't have income coming in, it's a little harder to pay those in full.
It's way harder.
And so they started growing a balance and so on. And then my home equity line of credit. I had a home equity line of credit when I bought my house.
Yep.
And I was paying it down responsibly. Well, when business wasn't good, like that started creeping up as well. And so I did have a cushion because of my I had a home, which eventually went super upside down, but I had a home. I had credit cards, so I was able to use those. Yeah. And I'm glad I had those available to me. I wouldn't necessarily encourage people to do it, but that's what I
did. That is some radical belief in yourself. You're right. Because this isn't a bank line of credit where you're dealing with like single-digit % interest. This is like 22% interest if you end up falling behind on these credit cards. And which you did. So talk about that experience of having to, because that's like, again, like most of your podcasts, you're not going to be talking about how difficult it was to get started because we don't want to scare people off. But like, I like diving into the reality of how much you did have to struggle. Every time I meet someone like you who's kind of self-made in an area like this, the struggle is real. And it actually is pretty protracted. When we look at like a historical chronology, you might think like, oh, okay, 2017 through 2019, I guess things were rough. And it's like, no. The 2 years of being like behind on this and this and this and house under, I mean, it's crazy. That's a long time if you're unsure of your future or like roof over your head.
For me, it wasn't a problem being unsure about my future because like for me, I was like, it'll always work out. Like I have this insane.
It will work out.
The problem is when at this point, around the same time I got married, and now I burden my wife with these future problems, right? And she's waking up, right? She can't sleep, and she's like, "Hey, like our house is in foreclosure because it was, right? Like our home is in foreclosure. You're paying for everything on your credit card. Like, yeah, you're taking me out to a nice date, but you put it on your credit card." It's like, yeah. She's like, well, that's not what I want, right? I'd rather eat at home than add more debt, right? For her, eating at home is more important than eating out on debt. For me, I'd rather eat out on debt, right? So like, I remember having fights about this, right?
Yeah.
And, like, the other things too, like around this time, this 07, 09, like I knew a lot of people going through divorce because real estate and construction, all the contractors were also having a hard time, right? A lot of people going through divorce, and that D word was dropped around in the household because of how much financial pressure was being put on the family. And like you look at the number one reason for divorce, it's not infidelity, it's finances.
It's finances, baby.
Yeah, and so I was putting a lot of pressure on my wife, and she still has PTSD today. She's like, when things are slow, like, is it going to happen again? I was like, no, like that's in the past. But she still has those feelings haven't gone away. The reality has drastically changed. But the feelings have not disappeared.
Yeah. Well, you did one thing extremely well, which is to marry well and early on. Because I will say again, there are a lot of spouses you could have in the world who'd be like, yeah, put it on the card, put it on the card, put it on the card. And then when the money is out, be like, okay, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? As opposed to like, let's think about our future and be more conservative with how we spend. So like, I mean, that is, I say that jokingly, but also not jokingly. Like that's probably one of the more important decisions you can make in your life is who's going to be your spouse for the rest of your life, or at least for a good segment of it. Because that's, I mean, man, that can affect so many other things outside of even your personal relationship, like your decision-making, ability to take risk, all sorts of other stuff can hinge on whether or not you have a supportive wife who's there for you and responsible, or someone who's not. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you did really well there. Yeah.
Yeah, very well, very well. I mean, in fact, she even got a second job at some point to keep things going.
Wow.
Because like I was really like, I mean, my first full year, I think '08, my expenses exceeded my revenue by $50,000.
Wow.
My 1040 is negative $50,000, right? So I mean, I had a wife that was really in my corner.
How long were you going through that financial struggle before you started to see the light at the end of the tunnel?
'09. In '09, things started turning around because this is when I started as a realtor. I was listing properties for banks, and so once I started listing properties for banks, like, you know, we could start seeing light at the end of the tunnel. We could start seeing like, okay, there is a way forward, there is a path forward. But man, until I started working with like Bank of America and Chase and Wells Fargo and Fannie Mae, like it was dark.
Brutal, huh? It was really brutal. So what advice for people who are just starting out, they're trying to avoid 2 years of being underwater? Like, what is your advice to them? Or is it that, you know what, you're going to have to eat dirt a little bit? I would expect a year or two of difficult financial reality before you start seeing light at the end of the tunnel.
I would say you shouldn't have to anymore. And I say that because the prevalence of information today is very different than it was back then. Back then, I had no one to talk to, like literally nobody to talk to, right? Like I could have reached out, I could have gone to the RIAs, there were people I could have talked to potentially, but like there was not an abundance mindset like there is today. It was very much a scarcity mindset. I don't want to tell you which list I'm pulling. I don't want to tell you how to pull phone numbers. I don't want like, hey, PPC, like, oh, don't do PPC, right? Like there was not this prevalence of information. Whereas today, like the information is out there. So I think today you have information available and you have networking available, right? Like social media, for good, for better, for worse, you at least know who's doing what you're trying to do, right?
Totally.
And so back then, like I was on an island, and there was not as much information available. So I think those two, there's no reason why anyone should have to struggle for 2 years, consecutive years today, with the amount of information and relationships available today.
Yeah. You just have to be willing to avail yourself of it, right? Because it's not going to chase you down. I imagine no one is going to chase down an individual trying to make this big change in their life with, here, read this. It's not going to happen. I mean, you do it well enough by advertising on YouTube and everything like that, but it's still, you're going to have to engage with this content and actually listen to it to get anything from it.
Yeah.
I wonder, and I know I'm bringing it back to your parents a lot, but because it's so stark in my mind, their example of setting the table for you and dedicating themselves to being like, to putting you in a place where you can succeed, do you think part of that is why you are doing this, like the podcast and all the other work you do to help other people do the same? Because that parallel is just so strong to me. It's like you're taking a huge part of your life to really set the table for other people whose success you probably never even see, most of these people, right?
Yeah.
But clearly that's some intrinsic part of you. Yeah.
So my parents' part of the story is only a piece of the story. It goes back further. So my grandparents on both sides, right? They're all from mainland China, and they were both merchants on both sides. They're entrepreneurs.
Really? Which
is funny. Like when my parents, they're like, "Why are you quitting your job?" I was like, "Well, if you look back in our history, like that's where we come from, right?"
That's so funny, isn't it? It really is. There's something to that, huh? It's just genetic. It's just passed down to you. Yeah.
So they're both merchants, and they were successful. And when communism took over, they lost everything, right? And so they fled to Vietnam and rebuilt everything and became successful merchants again, right? And they lost everything due to communism. And that's when my parents fled. That's when I was born in a refugee camp. That's when we came here. So like for me, one of the reasons why I'm so passionate is that I'm very, like, if people that meet me, that know me really, really well, might think I'm this crazy, crazy right-winger. I'm not, right? Yeah. I'm a libertarian. And basically it's just leave me alone. Just leave me alone, right?
Exactly. Right? Just don't get in the way. I don't even need your help at this point. Just please don't impinge on my ability to succeed. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And so I go here and talk about I want to create millionaires because for me, creating millionaires supports, capitalism, supports entrepreneurship. And this is a way to push back because, like, at some point in the last 10 years, I can't pinpoint when exactly, but profit became a bad word.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah, right? So at some point, profit became a bad word. And it was like, those people are taking advantage of us. Right? Like there's this idea that's come along. And for me, like I'm pushing this, like it serves my purpose to preach capitalism, to preach entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So that we can push back against all this idea of like, hey, what do we just take from the wealthy? Because my family's had that happen twice.
Yep.
And I would hate for it to happen a third time because that's going to happen to me and my kids.
No, I really agree with what you're saying. It's difficult. This idea has kind of gained traction in the populace that somehow building wealth doesn't mean everybody rising up. It means only certain individuals rising up, and that there is no disparate effect amongst the populace. And that's just wrong. You know what I mean? It's just untrue.
It is. It is. We see it all the time. We see it all the time.
All the time. Every time, case after case, when countries generally become wealthier, there is going to be a general like rising up of every class. We look at the average life now, a person at home with air conditioning and a fridge. I mean, a king couldn't live like that 100 years ago. You know what I mean? There is the luxuries that we have, that we enjoy daily, that we take for granted, exceed those of the wealthiest people in the world 50 or 100 years ago. You know what I mean?
King didn't have Amazon Prime.
He definitely did not. No. So actually, I want to use this as a good segue, because I think one of the things people are concerned a lot about with regard to finances and the future and prosperity is AI. And I got done yesterday listening to an amazing podcast you did just about AI and all of the amazing things you guys have built out with it. And I think what I'd love to talk to you about is kind of where do you see AI going? Where do you see it replacing people, not replacing people, helping people make more, getting in the way of people making more? Like, where are we headed with that?
So I am very concerned with AI. I am legitimately concerned. I am working harder now than I've had in years, because I am preparing myself for this AI revolution, because I do think that, up until this point in history, in 2025, I would argue it's never been a zero-sum game, that there's going to be some, everyone got lifted together. And I'm genuinely concerned whether that's still going to be true in 2026, because we had like the tractor versus the horse. We had, the horse and buggy versus just a horse, or a car versus a horse and buggy. We got the sewing machine or the loom, whatever, all that, like, every time something's come along, we'll be like, oh, you guys are making a big deal. Like, it's not going to be as bad. And that's been true historically.
It has.
But AI is changing so fast, I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm genuinely concerned about what the future looks like. And here's a sad thing.
Yeah.
I had to come to terms with this. My definition of success will lead to people losing their jobs. Like, that's a sad reality. So, we're a sales training organization. We train a lot of people on inside sales. Right. And so, like, a lot of people come to us for sales training to help train their inside sales and outside sales guys. Like, this is what we do all day, every day, is how we pay our bills today. But we're also building out AI agents now, right? That can book appointments, that can, get not necessarily contract signed today. I think that's probably at least another 2 years away. But like right now, I see by the end of the year, we can do what 99% of lead managers can do, or inside salespeople can do with our AI tools.
Wow.
And if that does well, then most business owners will cut costs and take that money and apply it towards marketing or something else. And so, like, I'm very concerned. Like, I have a friend, like, I talked to her last week. We were at Collective Genius, and like, she was like downtrodden. Right. And like, what's going on? And she was like, well, I've let go of 4 people this year. I said, okay. I mean, that happens. She's like, these are people that have been with me for a long time. These are people that I pay 6 figures a year. Like, they've been with me. They've been riding with me loyally, faithfully this whole time. And what we can do with AI now, their jobs are no longer relevant. And it's not just like, hey, we don't need them anymore. It's like other people are doing what we're doing without overhead. Right? Like, that gap is closed so quickly. So she has to either pivot or go out of business. Right? She's going to be at a $400,000 a year disadvantage against another kid who can do a lot of the same things with just AI. Like, she has to pivot. She has to be nimble. But that's 4 people who hopefully land on their feet, and they're good people, so they probably should. But there's going to be this deal of people that are smart, hardworking, that cannot keep up with AI, and that's what I'm actually terrified about.
It is scary. My background, I used to be in-house counsel before, and what I used to do was largely MSAs, NDAs, click-wrap agreements, and like, that was a pretty comfy job. That was a job you accrued $200K in debt to get, right?
Yes.
Dude, these days, the AI engines, I mean, even just a generalized engine, I'm not even talking about like a specific legal one, but just a ChatGPT can do any of those with 85% accuracy like that. It takes maybe one associate to review them for like 15 minutes, half an hour each, and boom, 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 done. That's terrifying.
I took a legal agreement I have that was written by an attorney, and I fed it to Grok, right? It's an older agreement. I was like, hey, it's time to update this agreement. Hey, Grok, what changes did you make? I looked at it, it's like, those are all great changes. Right?
Dude,
like, it updated my legal agreement for 2025.
And that would have cost you thousands of dollars because, again, of what a price command attorneys had on that before. What the dollar amount they could charge per hour was egregious. I'll just put it out there.
And this is also money sucked out of the economy. That is money that's not going to an attorney. That's not being spent later on for coffee and baristas or taking a client out to dinner who's paying for a bartender or, a server. Like that is money that's being sucked out of the economy. That is what I'm concerned about.
So how are you preparing for it? Like how are you and the people you work with preparing for this?
Well, we're getting in the front of it. And so we are.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like you guys are actually like the bet. Because I mean, with any of these changes, industrial revolution or any of these, it's like, do you want to be at the forefront of it or do you want to be the one impacted at the end by it?
Yeah. So like, the people we've been saying for a while is like either it's not whether AI will replace you. It's like, will you be like replaced by the guy that's using AI or will you be the guy that's using AI to replace others? Like, which one do you want to be?
You nailed it.
And we're choosing to be the guy that's using AI to replace others. And like we've had quarterly strategic meetings, we have annual strategic meetings like beginning of this year. And we go through the SWOT analysis, right? SWOTT. And the threat I said over and over again is like someone's gonna come with an AI tool that's going to be 20% of what we charge. And it's not going to be as good as us, but if it's 80% is good, they'll pay 20% of the price if it's 80% is good. I think most business owners would do that. So for us, like the greatest threat is AI. And so, when we jumped on it, my friend Stephanie Batter is like, well, why don't you be the AI guy? That's the threat. I was like, oh yeah. Why don't I be the AI guy? That's the threat. And so we are. So we're the threat. But look, even like, when we succeed here, there is going to be, this kind of goes against what I was saying, what we were talking about earlier about the zero sum game. But like, this is like, we're taking money out of people's hands that otherwise would have had a job before. So that's what terrifies me. Like, this isn't like, hey, instead of giving it to you, I'm giving it to someone else. Like, no, we're not giving it to anybody.
Yes, that is terrifying, isn't it? There's gonna be a lot of money sitting on the sidelines. It's interesting. I guess the two arguments I've heard is that, well, I'll give you the hopeful argument. So it's the hope out there. The hopeful argument I have is that, okay, if businesses are able to reduce their overhead by whatever it is, 50%, 60% or something like that. If I'm an investor and you're coming to me and you're telling me if I invest $20 million, you're going to give me whatever, 50% return in X number of years versus if you tell me I'm going to get 50% return in 1 year because they're using AI to be more efficient. Well, I'm probably willing to deploy more capital if it's more efficient than less capital if it's less efficient. So my hope is that at least we have a lot more startups and a lot more small businesses that get launched because people are willing to look at a company like yours and be like, dude, they're AI first. They're in their space. They're doing a great job. I'd love to deploy capital with them. I don't know how far that will go.
That's my hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the kind of the hopeful analysis. One thing that was interesting to me, because my CEO has really been leading the charge on AI internally for our company, and he's done an amazing job at it. Now, externally, we also use AI in Kixie, but just in the same way you guys are deploying AI to help with your clients. But what was interesting to me is how he switched my view of it. I used to use AI like I used every other tool my whole life, which is I want to do a thing, AI helped me do the thing, and it helps me execute with whatever it's doing. He's basically like, I want you to use AI to challenge your thinking on something. So you decide you want to do something. I want you to run that through ChatGPT, tell it to be critical, tell it to think like, a CEO of a major Fortune 500 company, tell it to analyze what you decided to do critically and challenge you around it. And that was like a big light bulb moment for me of AI going from being like a differentiator. Because you mentioned this is going to be different than the tractor or the loom. And this is one way that it is. Because with the tractor or the loom, you're like, I'm going to plow this field right now. The tractor wouldn't say, actually, if you plow it mid-May, you'll see 30% increase in returns. You know what I mean? Like a tractor isn't going to better inform your decision making. It's just going to carry out the decision you've already made. AI is a little different. AI is going to can actually challenge your assumptions about how to do things, which is just a huge light bulb moment for me. You know?
I mean, Keith Cunningham wrote the book, The Road Less Stupid, right?
Yeah.
And AI can really serve the role of Keith Cunningham to challenge all your assumptions before you proceed.
Yes.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's an interesting use case. So, I mean, what would be cool, if you're listening to this, feed some of Steve's podcasts into a ChatGPT, the transcript of them, and ask it, hey, I want you to basically judge what I'm about to do as if you were Steve and using his advice and kind of give me some, feedback on whether or not I should pursue this course of action. It'd be cool to see what that gives out. You know what I mean? Because again, a lot of people maybe you can't afford a mentor. Maybe you don't have one right now. Maybe you'd love to engage with your services, but you're still trying to put money together. That's a cheap way to do it. You know what I mean?
And look, we have enough body of knowledge out there where ChatGPT has an idea of what I'll say, even without uploading it, right? Like,
really?
Oh yeah, we have enough stuff out there. I mean, it's always constantly crawling, right? It's building. It's got the servers.
Actually, probably right. Especially like Gemini. I mean, they own YouTube, so I'm sure all the content you put out there.
Yeah, yeah. So
that's awesome.
It's. I wouldn't say it's complete, but there's something there. And then I would say probably use Grok versus ChatGPT only because ChatGPT is nice. And if you want like direct, I'm more like Grok than I am ChatGPT.
Is Grok better? Because I actually have to tell my ChatGPT
straight.
I tell ChatGPT, I say, don't be sycophantic. I say, don't tell me what I want to hear, and please don't use niceties. Because you're right. Otherwise, it would just regurgitate. You're amazing. You're the best. You're doing so good. This is a brilliant idea. Right. And I'm like, buddy, I'm not that brilliant. You know what I mean?
Grok is Elon. There's no sugarcoating. Oh, great. Just because it's used straight.
I like that too. I think that's one thing. I think besides just AIs, I think that's something to look for in mentors in general. I think it's easy to want to find mentors or friends who will tell you what you want to hear and say things that are pleasant or make you feel good in the moment, because it doesn't no skin off their back, but don't actually advance you very far in your career. Have you found that to be true too? Do you surround yourself with some mentors who are a little more critical with you?
Not so much anymore, only because I'm at a point now where I don't have enough mentors that are significantly further ahead. I mean, there are a lot of people much further ahead, but but right now I'm more friends with everyone else that everyone else uses for coaching. Really, the best attractors I have are people within my organization. Kind of like how Lincoln said he hired all his enemies, right, as his board. So for us, like inside my board, like I have vocal detractors who can see the problems that I can't see, because I'm a visionary. Like I think everything's gonna work out, so I plan for like no contingencies. And so like having a board around me who like is like, no, Steve, that's not going to work out the way you think it's going to work. And now we can plan effectively.
That's smart. Have someone who counterbalances your strengths. I think it's another thing.
Multiple
I know I was guilty of this.
To counterbalance me.
Yeah. I used to hire middle managers who had a lot of the same skills that I have and were kind of overlaying. And eventually I learned, and again, I'll give credit to my CEO. He was very clear with me. He's like, David, you want to hire people who complement, not just layer on top of. So you actually want people who are going to hold you accountable. If you're not much of a process guy, you want an amazing process guy. If you're a real by the book process guy, you want a more free thinking executor who can just move quickly. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So I got to ask you another question. Since we're talking about AI, you did a whole podcast on this, but like, it's just so timely. And I suggest people catch that podcast if they want to learn more, but like deep dive, but we have to talk about it since literally that's the very topic at hand. And you are, I think, in the forefront. I've looked at other kind of competitors, I guess you could call them, and what they're doing with AI. And what I like about yours is it's a solution that is right away. It's deployable right away. And it's not like pie in the sky, like, oh, there's an AI who's going to do everything for you. And all you'll have to do is just sit at home and eat Cheetos and you'll be successful. Like, you're not making crazy claims like that. It's like really not just scaling a business, it's scaling managers specifically within a business so that you can have more reps with less managerial oversight and have them be more and more successsul. So like talk a little bit about that and how your AI is not replacing people, is helping people become better people.
More effective, absolutely. So there's a couple different things. We have automatic call reviews. So like all our clients right now, after every single call, it is automatically scored within minutes and is fed into a chat, right? Like company chat, whether it's Slack, Google Chat, whatever. So everyone can see how you're doing. And what we're doing here with our tool is that it's done every single minute, every single day. So as a manager, you can go in there, you can see how your team is doing over time. Are our guys following our process? Are they committed to doing the right things? Are they saying what they're supposed to say on the phones? Or are they kind of saying whatever they want, right? Which is one of the things we worry about with our sales guys. Are they overpromising things, right? Do we get angry clients later on? So we got that part. First part is like automatic call reviews. And the second thing we built out was we got a bunch of role play bots. And with the role play bots, now you can practice, right? So as a business owner, if your guys are practicing every day, they're going to be better in the living room. They're going to be better on the phones, right? So we're gamifying role playing and we're going to create a competition amongst all our clients so that we're incentivizing behavior that we want, which is role play. And then as a business owner, you're going to get the results you want, which is more signed contracts. So
dude, the role play is great because so many times we train our reps on real convertible leads. I mean, we even do this internally, right? You tell them, okay, go after the old leads, which aren't even like bad. They're just lost deals or old leads. You get them on the phone. It's a successful potential customer. And now you have a rep who's not even been fully trained. He's trying to learn on a real dollar amount, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We're training our sales guys on money we spent money on. And so with the role play bots, like it role plays, it's realistic. We score it. There's feedback. So as a manager, you can listen to it. You can read the transcript or you can read the evaluation. Like it's all done right, inside our tool. And so anyone that wants like a sample of just a call review, right? Like we have it. You go to ObjectionProof.ai. You can just upload a call. You can copy and paste a transcript. You can upload an MP3, whatever. You can upload a call and it'll score the call and you'll kind of see like what we're doing. So like, it's not like, hey, like go like spend this money and go find out if you like it or not. It's like, we have a bunch of stuff for free.
Yeah.
Right. Check it out. And if you like it, have a conversation with the team. If you don't like it, like, okay, that's fine. It is what it is.
100%. Well, and let's talk about call reviews for a second, because again, let's think of how typical call reviews go. They go, okay, I'm going to have a bunch of teams make hundreds of calls a day for, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks. And then at the end of all of that, you've got thousands of calls. And my managers are going to pick out one or two from each rep to review with that rep in person. And that's if they're doing a good job every week, maybe every other week.
Right.
So you've got 99 point whatever % of your calls are never being reviewed by a manager. They're not being looked at. No one's doing any learning off of them. They're just sitting on Zoom somewhere or in High Level or whatever CRM you're using as a recorded call on Kixie. And there's no training being done across any of those calls. In fact, sometimes you're asking the rep to bring calls to you to review, in which case you're getting cherry-picked calls, the 0.01% of calls that they feel they want their manager to see. And that's what you're learning off of, not all the other calls that went awry. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's
right
invaluable.
now, the way I look at it is like, there will never be a sales call that's not being listened to. And so you have to be on point on every single appointment, because like if you do bad, it's going to get flagged. And we're going to look at it. Hey, what happened, David? Right. So like, there's not going to be any more, I hope he doesn't see this one.
Totally.
Right? Like, we're seeing every single one.
Yep. And anyone who's been involved, I was involved in criminal defense for a while. And anyone's involved in public policy knows that like the severity of the punishment doesn't matter nearly as much as how acute or often the punishment occurs whenever the infraction occurs. If you think, okay, I tell my reps, if I catch you doing this awful thing is going to happen to you. But then they know you never listen to 99.9% of the calls. They're going to roll that dice every week. That's not going to mean anything. But if they know they're checking every call, even if the infraction is small, like you get a 1 point ding against the scoreboard and whatever rep scores the highest gets this, whatever rep score the lowest gets this, well, they're going to be on it. Because it's the acuity of it. It's the fact that it's on top of every call. I love it. That's great.
And everyone else in the company knows how everyone else is doing.
Yes. Now let me give a question to you. So this happens a lot. You want to deploy an AI solution, and we worked with a number of AI solutions. And the person goes, "Great, I want to buy this AI solution, and I can rock and roll." And they go, "Yeah, you bought the AI solution, and you can rock and roll, but we got to train it first." And you're like, "Oh, okay. What do you need to train it?" "Well, we kind of need like hundreds, thousands would help of calls. And we do need those calls graded by like a real human so that we know what a bad call looks like and what a good call looks like." And before you know it, you're like, "Oh, Jesus, I'm not even close to being able to launch this thing." Because otherwise it's going to do, I'll be honest. Like I've had call review AIs before where it's like, "Okay, David, your rep is saying, no way too many times. They're saying no too many times. Lots of negative connotations within the call." And I listened to it and they're saying, "There's no way that you're going to lose money if you go with Kixie," or something like that. And I'm like, that's a great way to phrase it. What are you talking about? It's not a negative indicator at all. Like, so how much work does someone have to do to get this AI to be able to stand it up and start deploying it like now versus like, is this how much training do they have to do and like work they have to do preparatory before they can go live with it?
Zero training, zero prepping, and we get someone up and running in an afternoon.
How the heck can you do that?
So remember how I used to work at Intel, or we didn't really touch that? Like, I was an engineer too. So like, I designed this in a way I would want to use it. So I'm the avatar. So I'm designing it so that, like screw the onboarding fee, screw this setup, that setup, whatever. It's like, this works. We have 60 people using it right now, right? We only started this a few months ago. Right? Like I am not greedy. I don't know. I think everyone overcomplicates things. I want a tool that scores on sales. Yep. So we've trained it. We've trained it for 2 years now. It just works out of the box.
So you've already been feeding it all the training material to get it to be like locked in on kind of your sales methodology already.
Yes.
That's the secret sauce. Because that's what I think so many AI bots out there do not have. They're a generic, let's be honest, I'm a tech company. They're built by a tech company. So they're built by a bunch of tech company people, not salespeople. And they're a generic bot. And then you hand it out to people and you'd be like, a bunch of engineers design this thinking, people can train this and set it up just fine. We're engineers. We can set it up and train it. But the average person isn't an AI engineer or a machine learning engineer, and they're not going to be able to train this damn thing. There's no way. Or it takes so much work, they might as well build their own bot and start selling it on the market if they're going to be doing that much work to stand it up. So you're saying you've actually already trained this on what a bad call looks like, good call, bad objection, good objection handling, all that kind of stuff.
All of it. Yeah. Because like, what do we know? Like, it doesn't matter what sales methodology you believe, right? Like, overarching principles, there's a ton of commonalities, right? So like, are you setting clear expectations beginning of the call? Are you empathetic and curious? Are you assertive versus aggressive? Are you storytelling versus answering questions? Are you leading with emotions? Are you pulling away so that they fill the void? Are you preventing remorse before you end the call? Are you setting clear next steps after the call's over so that, they're not in limbo and wondering what's next? It doesn't matter what your sales philosophy is. Those things are true in every sales conversation.
Yep. The universal.
And that's what we trained it on.
That's amazing. So really what you're buying isn't just an AI agent. You're essentially buying an AI Steve Trang sales coach, like who's ready to deploy. Just boom, ready to roll. Now that's amazing. So that's what was the URL for that? It was
ObjectionProof.ai.
ObjectionProof.ai. I mean, that's fantastic. I suggest everybody check that out because that's like I said, we work with a lot of AI platforms on the market. I have not seen one where the builders of it inherently already trained it and codified like what looks good and what looks bad based on a sales methodology that's been proven that works over time and across industries. That's remarkable. We actually need to talk after this because I would love to start pushing Kixie calls there. Let's build an integration. I would love to start pushing Kixie calls directly to your bot. Let's do that.
I'd love to do that. Let's do it.
Because I know you guys integrate with High Level. We already integrate with High Level. We already track and record every call. I want to start standing that up. I would love that. So I want to use just the last couple minutes we have. We're obviously a calling and texting platform that integrates with CRMs. I have to ask you, what's the state of calling right now in your industry? How are you maximizing it? How are you getting a hold of people these days? Because man, it is tough.
Oh man. So calling, we had to switch things around. We had to get approved. Let's see. We had to get verified as a business. So now whenever someone calls, so whenever someone calls, I think it goes a little bit further than 10 DLC, but basically what the caller ID now says is Disruptors Inc., right? Which is our podcast, Disruptors. So when you get a phone call from our company, it says Disruptors Inc. We finally got approved by Verizon. I want to say like this past week, right? Because we were just constantly spam when we were calling Verizon people. So we had to go get, I don't know, my VA took care of all of this. But changing all the caller IDs so that we're a safe number so we don't show up as spam. Absolute pain in the butt. But that's what we had to do to get around that.
And was that really effective?
We will find out. I mean, literally, I think yesterday, the team was like jumping up and down that we can finally call Verizon numbers again.
Amazing. Yeah, Verizon was their spam detection is especially brutal. We have this AI spam prevention that basically analyzes across the 4 major mobile carriers and like tracks what numbers are showing up as spam and not. And Verizon's a brutal one. Verizon and AT&T can be brutal too, depending on what area code you're calling from. AT&T can be pretty brutal too.
Yeah. So, and I know I've heard you guys have done a great job with that, right? I got a friend who uses you guys. He says like you guys are awesome for getting the phone numbers, phone calls through.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely the challenge of our time. It's a total cat and mouse game. They're using AI to try and detect numbers that might be spam. We're using AI to try and combat it. Apple just released their new call screening. It's a total game, and it's only going to escalate and move faster and faster as time goes on. So
I want to give we're going to get to a point where I was going to say we're going to get to a point in the next 12 months where like, unless they've opted in, you're just not going to get a hold of them. Even then, you might not get a hold of them. We're going to get to that point.
So what's your plan then? You're all about contingency. You're all about SWOT analysis. How are you thinking to approach that?
I think it's just creating a need, right? Hitting our market, hitting our avatar. So we do our number one lead source is masterminds, so going to events. And number 2 is Facebook marketing, right? I mean, we just picked up another client today from Facebook marketing. So just advertising is the way through where they have to pick up the phone or they have to opt in. It's like, I want to communicate with you versus what we've done before, which is, we made a lot of money cold calling,
Yes.
But right now today, what we do mostly face-to-face or inbound.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I think you're right. It's going to move to more of a lead by attraction kind of universe. And what's so fascinating, and you could call this karma, or you could just call this good fortune or strategic planning, but what you've done in terms of creating value for others through all the content you put out might actually be, although probably wasn't intended to be this, one of your best sources of revenue generation going forward, even though at the time it was giving a bunch of stuff out for free that, like you said people used to hoard and be like, you got to pay me for this knowledge. You gave it up for free. And now actually that might be the thing to save you is the fact that
absolutely.
you get to attract
absolutely.
people.
Yeah. Creating that brand definitely was really, really helpful. Without a doubt. So thankful that I did that.
Yes. And it's a key differentiator. Again, if more and more people adopt kind of generic AI bots to handle a lot of this stuff, the fact that you have an identifiable brand and people know what you think and how you stand on issues, and like that is something that will attract people in a way that a more generic corporate profile probably wouldn't, especially if it was kind of bot generated. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, speaking of it, it has been incredible having the real you and not an AI you on this podcast. I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to have Steve Trang on the podcast like this and not some AI representative of yours. So I'm really appreciative you took the time out to meet with me and talk to me in person. It's been amazing.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
If people want to learn more about everything you do, about getting into real estate, about overcoming all of the stuff you overcame to be successful and hopefully become one of those 100 millionaires, how do they find out how to do it? Where do they go?
I mean, the best way, all the free stuff, we go to disruptors.com, or we have our podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify. So it's Disruptors. And then on Instagram at steve.trang, I put a lot of free stuff that I wish I had when I started. I put out a lot of free stuff on my Instagram at steve.trang.
Amazing. If you guys don't want to go through 2 years of intense turmoil the way Steve did to try and get up and running, I highly, highly recommend you listen to the content he's put out because it is incredible. And it's I'll say this, what I like about it is it's not focused on like pushing any product or anything you have. It really is about just information dump after information dump after information dump of like your real experiences and real examples and real people you've worked with to overcome all sorts of different challenges. And like, it's invaluable out there. I think everyone should avail themselves of it.
Thank you. I mean, the avatar really is me. Like, this is like what I wish I had when I started.
100%. Awesome. Well, people are lucky to have it.